The U.S. Navy does not improvise under pressure. Every carrier strike group operates inside layers of doctrine, procedure, and escalation control refined over decades of conflict planning. From the Persian Gulf to the Pacific, every threat has a model. Every enemy has a profile. But in the South China Sea, during what should have been a routine freedom of navigation operation, the Navy encountered something that did not belong in any playbook. A weapon system that did not maneuver like a submarine, did not emit like a sensor array, and did not threaten openly. They called it the hammer. And once it activated, the engagement had already begun. The first indicators appeared weeks earlier. U.S. Naval Intelligence began receiving inconsistent acoustic data from fixed undersea monitoring points near a heavily contested stretch of the South China Sea. The region sat between artificial island installations, commercial shipping lanes, and international transit routes used daily by U.S., allied, and partner navies. At first, analysts suspected seabed construction. China had been expanding underwater infrastructure for years. Power cables, sensor arrays, even submerged logistics hubs tied to island outposts. But this was different. The contact was too large, too dense, and completely motionless. Satellite imagery showed nothing, no surface activity, no support vessels, no construction barges. Yet, the mass remained. Sitting quietly beneath the thermocline, where sonar performance degraded and thermal layers bent sound in unpredictable ways, the designation came quickly. Unidentified undersea weapon platform, Hammer. And every analyst in the room understood the implication. If the system was Chinese, it meant Beijing had achieved something the U.S. Navy had long warned about: permanent, survivable undersea strike capability, inside contested waters. Leaving the Hammer untouched was not a neutral option. If operational, the platform could threaten carrier movements without ever launching a missile. It could force task groups to maneuver defensively, disrupt flight operations, and create hesitation in waters the U.S. Navy was legally entitled to operate in. That alone would be a strategic win for China, so the decision was made quietly. A U.S. carrier strike group already operating in the Western Pacific adjusted course. No announcement, no escalation signaling. Just presence. Destroyers expanded their screening formation. Attack submarines moved into position below the layer. P-8 Poseidon aircraft began persistent patrols under the cover of routine surveillance. Everything appeared normal, which is exactly how escalation is managed at sea. At 2:13 local time, a U.S. attack submarine initiated a passive to active transition. A low-power acoustic probe was transmitted toward the contact. Not an attack, not a strike, a question. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then pressure sensors registered a subtle displacement. Not thrust, not propulsion, mass shifting against the seabed. The Hammer was not a static installation. It was reconfiguring. Sonar operators watched the contact change shape. What had appeared as a single large mass began separating into distinct structural segments. Acoustic signatures flattened, then re-emerged slightly offset from their original position. This was textbook counter-detection behavior. The system was not hiding. It was managing how it was perceived. That alone elevated the threat. Under U.S. Navy rules of engagement, a mobile undersea weapon inside contested waters represented an unacceptable risk. The strike group commander authorized a precision neutralization attempt. 2 heavyweight torpedoes were launched from standoff distance, programmed for hardened targets, designed to penetrate reinforced structures before detonation. Halfway through their run, telemetry began degrading. Depth readings fluctuated, acoustic returns multiplied, false targets appeared ahead of the weapons. Then both torpedoes detonated prematurely, no impact, no damage. The Hammer had active countermeasures, advanced ones. Within minutes, anomalies rippled across the strike group. Sonar performance degraded unevenly across platforms. Thermal layers shifted in ways oceanographers later described as artificially induced. Navigation systems began desynchronizing just enough to trigger safety limits. Nothing catastrophic, nothing overt, just friction. This was deliberate. The Hammer was not attacking. It was shaping the battle space. At 3:08, The platform began to rise, slowly, deliberately. As it lifted from the seabed, structural details became visible on sonar and synthetic aperture returns. Long cylindrical compartments arranged along its upper hull. Launch cells, dozens of them, not tactical rockets. Strike-length payloads capable of targeting surface vessels, ports, or infrastructure across the region. This was not a defensive system. It was deterrence embedded underwater. Inside the command center of the carrier, the atmosphere changed instantly. Up to this point, the engagement had followed familiar patterns. Unknown contact, escalating threat, controlled response. But what sat beneath them now was something naval planners had warned about for years in classified war games. A fixed strike platform placed deliberately inside the first island chain. This was not a weapon meant to win a fight outright. It was designed to make presence itself expensive. Every mile the carrier group moved forward now carried an invisible calculation. Risk to aircraft, risk to escorts, risk to escalation control. On secure channels, intelligence officers began cross-referencing known Chinese undersea projects, civil military fusion programs, deep-sea mining platforms, dual-use energy stations built near artificial islands under commercial cover. The pattern fit. China did not need to sink a carrier to change behavior. It only needed to demonstrate that one could be threatened without warning. Commanders understood the implication immediately. If the hammer remained intact and unchallenged, it would not stay alone. More platforms would follow. Slowly, quietly, the battle space would harden against U.S. movement. This was how access was denied, without firing a shot. A decision had to be made before the situation hardened beyond control. Escalate now, on U.S. terms, or accept a new reality, where every patrol moved beneath the constant, unseen pressure rising from the seabed. The strike group commander requested updated authorization windows. Rules of engagement tightened. Legal advisors weighed in. Every action now carried strategic consequences far beyond this stretch of ocean. And somewhere beneath the surface, the hammer waited. Just as targeting solutions stabilized, every sensor lost the contact simultaneously. No jamming spike, no electronic warfare indicators. The hammer simply vanished. For 12 seconds, the undersea picture collapsed. In naval combat, 12 seconds is a lifetime. That was when the second layer activated. Multiple small contacts detached from below the fleet. Autonomous underwater vehicles. Fast, distributed, purpose-built. They were not armed. They were observing. Mapping emissions, reaction times, maneuver patterns. The realization spread quickly through command channels. This was not an engagement. It was a live-fire intelligence collection operation, and the U.S. Navy was the subject. The strategy shifted immediately. Procedural discipline took over. No raised voices, no rushed orders. Every movement was deliberate, rehearsed, and controlled. This was the environment U.S. naval crews trained for constantly. High uncertainty, incomplete information, and the need to act without revealing intent. Commanders focused on one priority: maintaining escalation control. Every emission was measured. Every response was calibrated to signal capability without triggering a broader confrontation. The objective was not to win an engagement, but to prevent the situation from spiraling beyond anyone's control. In modern naval warfare, restraint can be as decisive as firepower. Destroying the hammer was no longer the priority. Denying information was. Electronic warfare aircraft saturated the zone with controlled interference. Decoy signatures mimicked carrier movement. Submarines repositioned to generate false acoustic corridors. The goal was confusion. If the system was learning, it needed corrupted input. For the first time, the swarm hesitated. The ocean trembled. The platform reappeared closer to the surface, fully deployed, but it did not launch missiles. Instead, a localized undersea energy pulse rippled outward, precise, controlled. Several U.S. autonomous systems went dark instantly. No explosion, no debris, just silence. A warning. Measured. Intentional. With escalation thresholds closing, commanders authorized a classified response. A deep-sea munition designed not to destroy targets, but to collapse the physical environment around them. The weapon deployed. No fireball, no visible shockwave, Only pressure. Water compressed violently around the hammer, exceeding structural tolerances. External systems folded inward. Launch cells collapsed. Structural integrity failed. Then, silence. When the water settled, the hammer was gone. No wreckage surfaced. No attribution was issued. No official statement named China. Publicly, the operation was logged as routine. Privately, analysts understood the reality. The hammer had not lost. It had demonstrated presence, tested U.S. responses, and disengaged on its own terms. This was not about sinking ships. It was about proving that the ocean itself can be turned into a weapon. The U.S. Navy attacked the hammer and survived. But the encounter sent a message to every fleet operating in the South China Sea. Future naval conflicts will not begin with missile launches. They will begin quietly beneath the surface, with systems shaping the battlefield long before the first shot is fired. And by the time anyone realizes what is happening, the outcome may already be decided.